was hurting American security, and this was virtually treasonous to be doing it. 19 papers in all defied the Attorney General, defied the President in the face of 4 injunctions, each one of which was unprecedented in American, that is, the first one was unprecedented, but the 4 of them together were unprecedented in American history. And yet 15 other papers continued to publish them until the Supreme Court ruled that the injunctions were invalid and that they were allowed to print. So it was a wave of civil disobedience that I think has not occurred in any institution in any modern society known to me.
Compare that to the media the last 8 years and then today.
Well, the media last 8 years have acted like lapdogs, like scribes or stenographers to the press, with a few honorable exceptions. But that was true in Vietnam as well, except for the Pentagon Papers. And in that case, the field reporting was much freer than it's been allowed to be for a generation now. I think England, to some degree, led the way with their censorship of what they called the Falklands War, controlling the media in that operation. But we imitated it in Grenada, in Panama, in the first Gulf War, and the embedding process in this war. So the media have allowed themselves to be very much tamed in the field in terms of what they can show. This movie, by the way, The Most Dangerous Man Alive, I was watching news clips.
Which is how you were described.
Yeah, that was Henry Kissinger's term for me. But it had a lot of newsreel clips from that time, including clips of wounded and dead Americans. And I was very struck by that because I'm aware you cannot show that on television now. They've censored that for more than a decade. So Americans are totally kept ignorant of the bloody side of war. And of course, war is bloodletting.
Now, the film, which is about you, The Most Dangerous Man Alive, that's going to be coming out soon?
I don't know. They have to have a distributor. I didn't mean to get onto that subject.
No, but we can plug it a bit, so if people want to know, follow what happens with that film. I guess there's a website or something?
Yes, there is a website. I think it's called The Most Dangerous Man Alive, that the directors, it was done independently of me, but I'm interviewed in the
So
film.
just to end up, in terms of how the media is covering Afghanistan now, how do you rate it?
Well, again, they don't seem able to get out in the field that much. We're learning a lot from these. That was especially true in Iraq, and in Afghanistan too. It seems to be very hard for the media to get outside Kabul with a few people who take heroic measures to get out. As you say, you were all over. Very good.
Well, that was 2002.
Yeah,
2002 was not difficult to get all over. Things have changed dramatically.
So, on the one hand, I doubt if they are. They're not getting the kind of coverage that we got in Vietnam.
In terms of the debate about Afghan policy,
in terms of DC coverage, well, there are some differences. There have been more leaks this side on both sides of the dispute. We're aware that there is a policy dispute going on. There was a dispute, very much so, in Vietnam, but that was totally kept silent. On the other hand, we haven't seen a Pentagon Papers, and I would like to see a Pentagon Papers of Afghanistan right now, last month, next month, this week, very important. For example, I think it would show something that the media have not shown at all, that I'm certain that President Obama is seeing standard figures from counterinsurgency doctrine, that the total number of troops, Afghan and American, have to add up like something for the country like 600,000, 700,000 troops. That has not been shown at all. There was one leak by Andrea Mitchell in NBC that used the figure 500,000, not followed up by anyone. Now they're presuming that most of that will be Afghan, but it won't. The Afghan army hardly exists. There's a very good column by Ann Jones on the web. In fact,
the Afghan ambassador to the United States was on one of the Sunday morning programs a couple of weeks ago, saying that he was asked what should be done to change the situation in Afghanistan. And he said, well, how about actually investing some money in the Afghan army? Because apparently there's next to no financing.
Well, they can invest the money, but where is the money that's been invested in it so far actually gone? Are there Afghan troops? Ann Jones actually raised that question. Now, the reason I know that's not just a rhetorical question is that the Vietnamese armed forces, the figures for those were enormously inflated every year of the war, and what they had were phantom soldiers whose pay was collected by their commanding officers. They had deserted or had been killed, and the ranks had not been refilled by anyone else, and the pay was simply being collected by their commanding officers. Why does it take Marines in Helmand province to be taking that back right now? So many, 1,100 here, 1,100 there. Where are the Afghan armies? How many stories have you seen on them? They've been trained for 8 years now. No doubt you could put more money into them, but where would it go? Switzerland?
So we're at a moment right now where President Obama is about to announce a decision about whether to expand American troop presence or not. There's a grand debate taking place between the military and the White House and within the White House. What does your experience in the Vietnam days tell us about this?
I think that I'm reliving a period when I was in the Pentagon in June and July of 1965, when President Johnson was about to enter an open-ended escalation of the war. He had at that time about 70,000 troops in Vietnam, exactly what Obama has in Afghanistan at this time. And he was facing actually requests for an initial 100,000 to go over. Let's say that corresponds to the 80,000 that is McChrystal's least risk figure that he's giving right now, and or 40,000 as a less risk. What is the meaning of that? And if the president does what the BBC says he has already decided to do, if he sends 45,000 troops, which is McChrystal's minimum at this point, why will he have done that? The Pentagon Papers showed basically what Johnson's reasons were, and I think the reasons for Obama would be the same. To keep the military, the top military, from resigning and going public with complaints that he has abandoned a winnable war, a war that the president doesn't himself believe can be won, and yet he goes into what he foresees will be a bloody, long, escalating stalemate in order to prevent his military from making a political case to his public and to the Congress that he has been weak, unmanly, indecisive, weak on terrorism, and has endangered American troops and Americans.
But if he's really afraid of that, then why not fire these guys before this happens?
And he doesn't feel he can fire them, actually because, like Johnson, he appointed them. And he can count on senators from his own party saying, like Dianne Feinstein right now, you appointed these crackerjack people, you signed on to this policy, and now you're changing your mind. Isn't that flip-flopping? You're not trusting military judgment. Now, the president, I feel sure, in this case, doesn't trust the advice that he's getting. That's why he's delaying as long as he is, and he's right not to trust it. And the advice he's getting from people like General Powell and John Kerry, both of whom had experience in Vietnam, is that he should not trust that advice, that it's invalid. And nevertheless, I think he will do what Johnson did, go against his own instincts as to what's best for the country and do what's best for him and his administration and his party in the short run facing elections, which is to avoid a military revolt. We're almost facing something like the threat of something like a coup, that the military will oppose their authority against his, in this case, and in order to do that, many Americans, many Afghans will die in order to protect the president from that kind of blame.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.
Okay, how many of you have had a friend or a lover or someone close to you that you trusted lie to you? Maybe try to cheat you. Maybe you got cheated. Maybe you had a scam run on you. Did you ever go back? Did you ever let them back into your confidence? Did you ever trust them again? Would you give them a blank check? Well, as Americans, we have a peculiar habit of saying, oh, they always lie. They always lie. Well, if they lie, then don't ever let them have anything to do with you or government again. Doggone it. You wouldn't speak to a friend who cheated you if, but in the government, it's okay to keep re-electing them over and over and over again. Well, you heard Daniel Ellsberg give an analysis from more or less what I call a conventional activist viewpoint. Now let's get a little more radical. This is Chudovsky. Listen to what he has to say about what we're coming up to, and then we'll go one more step after that. This is a good one. Pay close attention.
Well, this rhetoric directed against Iran has been ongoing for several years. In fact, it started in the immediate wake of the invasion of Iraq. And I think what is important to understand is that